Gave up and kept working hard for his diploma. When things got tough, he stepped up his effort, and if he needed help, he would take the appropriate steps to seek assistance. He's a wonderful example of resiliency and perseverance. I know that with Toby's motivation and fun personality, he has a bright future ahead of him. Best wishes. That's from Mrs. Senedek. So I present to you Toby Dwayne Williams.
Man, that's crazy. I like to thank my family, of course. You know, I love y'all. Y'all push me to the limit. You know, I had to do this for Ava. I had to do it for Tom. You know, because if he was here, you know, he'd be happy. That's all I gotta say. And thanks.
Good job.
So once again, to Mr. Shiro and to the Warren City Schools Board of Education, I present to you these two fine graduates and members of the Warren G. Harding class of 2020, Robert Harry Hutchinson and Toby Dwayne Williams. Congratulations. Thank you. Very good.
Very good.
Very nice. Thank
Yeah.
you, Mr. Capers. And congratulations to our two new graduates.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you, Mr. Capers, for taking care of our students the way you do and making sure that they are successful graduates here at Warren G. Harding High School. Congratulations to Harry and Toby and on your persistence and your determination through the process. Summer graduation is a special thing here in the Warren City Schools, and you should be recognized, gentlemen, for your hard work and dedication. We are proud of you and everything you've accomplished. The second superintendent's report this evening is the Restart and Reopen Plan, and I just wanted to take a minute and ask the Board of Education if you have any questions regarding the Restart and Reopen Plan. There was one slight adjustment that I made to the Restart and Reopen Plan in regards to transportation, which was on, I believe, page 7, and that is adding that educational assistants are riding our bus in the mornings to ensure social distancing of students and to help seat them as the bus driver is doing their job in routing. And I also included the guidelines for transportation. So other than that, this is the same document that was communicated to families on our website, employees of the district and the Board of Education 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yes, same thing, other than just a little adjustment in transportation to clarify the additional that we were doing for our students. So is there any questions from members of the board?
No,
Does anyone have any questions?
I've not heard, everything's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how did it go? How did the reopening go?
I think it went very well. I can say that it's different having less students in the building. The students are definitely social distancing. There are 99% of the students are having no issue whatsoever wearing a facial covering and mask during the day, to the point that they, I think nearly every child has come to school with their own mask. Students, have been taking some mask breaks, and we have not had any concerns come forth to us or to the building administration. Lunches have gone great if they were in the cafeteria or in the classroom. I was here at Harding when students were getting their lunches delivered in the classroom this afternoon. I know Mr. Lacey has been monitoring this, as well as Mrs. Hartzell. We've been throughout the buildings. Transportation has run smooth and on time. Once we get more consistency in the transportation schedule, we'll probably consolidate some routes. Routes that have very few students on a bus. We'll make those adjustments as things kind of work their way through. I would have to say the biggest challenge we're having is with the time and the technology. A lot of work has gone through it. I need our families to be very patient. When you put 4,000 computers out there in circulation, and there's expectations, that we have to teach students. Our teachers have had to learn. They've spent the month of August in professional development, and there are glitches, and there's going to be glitches because it's new. It's with anything that we do. It is new, and there are going to be glitches, and we are working through them. We just ask for patience as we go through the process. Even in the first couple days, we're well farther ahead of where we were when this got dropped on us in March, because we had time to in-service and prepare. I know Mrs. Hartzell was going to talk a little bit more about the student groupings and what we've done in preparation for student groupings here in the third superintendent's report. But overall, it has gone well, but it is a very eerie feeling with such few students present. It's different. It's different. And I know Mrs. Hartzell is going to touch on this, so I don't want to take her report away from her, but approximately 1/3 of our students are in cohort A, which reports on Mondays and Tuesdays. 1/3 is in cohort B, which reports on Thursdays and Fridays, and approximately 1/3 is full online and remote. So it worked out very, very evenly.
Okay. Very good, very good.
Are there any other questions? Again, this plan was developed following health department guidance. That was the key as far as how things go. I asked families and staff to be flexible. This is a document that's fluid. It will change. The information that we receive changes frequently. I have my next meeting with the health commissioner tomorrow morning at 9. I'm sure information in this document will change then. It always does. So, we'll continue to make the adjustments and shifts as appropriate. So if there aren't any questions, I'm going to move on to the third superintendent's report this evening. That'll be brought to us by Mrs. Hartzell, our associate superintendent. She'll be discussing in-person learning cohorts A and B and the full online remote learning cohort C. Mrs. Hartzell?
Thank you. And as Mr. Shiro started or ended his time with talking about the cohorts and how we've got almost an even distribution of the third, and third, I will say that our cohort B started on the 27th, and they had first couple of days in, and then it was almost round 2, almost like a new start again for cohort A, which started yesterday. But I just want to start with by kind of taking back a little bit of where we started when administrators first came back. Their first day back was July 27th. And when they reported back, the very first thing we did is we kind of caught them up with COVID training. Just really went through the documents from the state and the restart documents and really caught everybody up and made sure everybody was on the same page and understood kind of where we were in our planning. Many of them were off for a few weeks of rest and gearing up for the start of the school year, as there were several of us that worked all summer. So we just wanted to make sure everybody had the same information. One of the first things that was done after that is there were direct phone lines. We knew that technology and a lot of questions would come from families in both the cohort A and B, as well as the full remote online students. And so there was a dedicated phone line that was set up at every building so that parents could call in and ask their questions if We don't know the answers immediately. Certainly, we are returning those phone calls within 24 hours, trying to get those answers to support families and students at home. Superintendent, had communicated out through a written communication regarding families having the intent to sign up for online, the full remote learning. As most schools in Trumbull and even some in Mahoning County had opened their window for 5 days from the onset of the window being open for us, we actually had it available to parents to sign up their students for about 8.5 days. So we extended it and made that opportunity available. Any parents that missed that window, we heard loud and clear that they wanted, the remote learning. But we had to see, first of all, what we were dealing with number-wise and making those arrangements to start school. So what we did is we started a wait list, and I will tell you that watching those numbers and preparing the buildings and staff coming in with professional development, we were able to shift those waitlist students to full online students, and there were approximately about an additional 180 that were granted the full online. And so in that very short turnaround, not only were they notified that they were going to be the full online learners, but also then getting equipment dispersed to them, and the beginning of the year, letters and how to log on and some of those support materials for those families. So that was a very quick, because they were notified on the 24th and equipment distribution started on the 26th. And so the team here in Warren did a really nice job making sure that everything was lined up and ready to go for families.
Wonderful.
As far as cohort A and B, since they have been our students coming in, one of the things that we did put at the entrances where students were coming in were the thermal scanners to take the temperatures as both staff and students enter. I will tell you, I've been at the buildings at the beginning of the day, and some of the cutest things is some of the kids think it's a camera. I mean, they know it's taking their temperature, but they're smiling and they're posing. And when you get the green check mark that the temperature's good and they can continue on to go get their. A lot of kids are giving a thumbs up right back to the camera, to the thermal scanner. So the kids are doing a great job. Staff's doing a great job entering the building and having the students kind of follow the protocols. And so that's been really good to see. Routines are being built very quickly, and people are adapting.
Wonderful.
One of the other things that was very needed, as Mr. Shiro alluded to, was professional development. And so there was a lot of professional development through the Office of CNI that was planned for over the summer of August, over the month of August. And we had hundreds of teachers that participated in that as we continue to provide professional development even now to refine the platforms and the technology pieces that we are asking teachers to use and answering questions as they come up, and really trying to be that support system for teachers so that they can turn around and be that support system for students and families. Again, I couldn't be more pleased the way that the opening has started with all groups. We are, I think, on the right track, and certainly we are looking to provide the best we can for the students that we have, whether they're in the cohort with the hybrid or whether they're full online. We believe in our kids, and we want them to have the best education and opportunities that we can afford them.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for me?
Does anyone have any questions? Any board members?
Sounds like it's going well.
Yeah,
It does.
yeah. I just
No
want to say
questions here.
kudos. Yeah, no questions.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great job, you guys. Great job.
yeah, thank you to all those involved in getting this off the ground, the CNI department, the building principals, the teachers, the professional development that's taken place. And again, I want to say, it's not working perfectly, and for some families, it may not be working well. It's a matter of working through it, working through our tech support, if it's a technician, if it's a building secretary, a principal, their teacher, whatever it takes, that we need to get this up and running efficiently. We're not there, but we didn't expect to be there the first day we opened up a laptop. We didn't expect to open a laptop and see a teacher. We expected this to take time. And so we are where we would expect to be, and we are working through the glitches along the way. Okay, and again, as I mentioned earlier, the hotspots should start rolling in hopefully as soon as next week.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And fourth superintendent's report this evening is going to be presented by Mr. Lacey, our Executive Director of Business Operations. He's going to provide to us a brief facilities update on a number of facilities along the way. So, Mr. Lacey?
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to give everybody an update. The tennis courts are now complete. One more addition will come, which is a tennis backboard that we will add to the back fencing. That's if somebody's by themselves, they hit it against this wall and they can play that way. Softball field should be complete this week as far as the grounds are concerned. We then would just have the roofing to put on the dugouts, which will be done by our carpenters, and that should be completed probably October, whenever they are done doing all their installs for the buildings here to start with. So that should be fine. Some of you might not have known we had a little situation based on last week's storms that our band shell initially lost one piece of the galvanized roofing, was blown off Thursday afternoon. And then Friday afternoon, we had that other quick storm, which left another probably about a third of the roof hanging off of the structure. So Saturday morning, we had two of our carpenters come up in bucket trucks. They had to cut the roof into pieces to get it down. They were able to get it down, and so it basically in good shape. But what that leaves for us is probably 2/3 of a roof that if the wind comes out of the east, northeast, southeast, would create a problem as far as any future pieces being blown off. So we've been in contact with Adolph Johnson, who just completed part of our ventilation roofing at Willard, and they gave us, they came this morning actually and looked at what it would cost to, a rough estimate of what it would cost to remove basically all of the roof itself, not just the top of it, but those wood beams underneath, and what would be the ceiling of the band shell has basically all deteriorated. So that only came to about $38,000 for a total removal. Usually demolition is very easy, but in this instance, it's not going to be because it's pretty high up. It's not easy to get to, and it's not easy to drop those pieces. So that'll be something that we'll be looking at, but we need to get it done, probably sooner than later for this. Also, on the good news front is they started working at Willard Elementary School yesterday to start replacing the roof, which is the good news. The first part that they took off, probably the first 16 feet of the galvanized steel had to be replaced. The plywood was saturated, and there was water sitting in the channels of the galvanized steel. So our belief is that is the worst, one of the worst areas, because that would be kind of on the northwest part of the building, which would be over delivery and where that kindergarten area is. We think that's the worst area, we hope. But they did find quite a bit more intrusion than what they were expecting.
Is that going to impact the schedule now that they had found that? I know we were talking about that the other week, so the schedule is still pretty much, even with that, it's going to be okay?
Yeah, we've the last two afternoons, I've met with the site foreman and Michelle Shiro, the building lead principal, and we're working through the issues. We might have to remove a chunk of a fence to get a machine in, but you know,
Okay.
Michelle's been great. We're not interrupting the kids' ingress and egress. They can come and go. The guys are starting to understand when the peak, times with buses and cars and, all these things. So it's been really good, and they've been really, really great to work with, and Michelle's been great. So good communication so far. So, but those are the four major items I have going on right now. And I suppose at some point, we might want to look at having a field and that you guys can determine, but we could have a tennis court and softball field dedication at some point. And they are looking good. Those look good.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lacy. Along those lines, again, we haven't dedicated a facility or a project in a while, so I'm unfamiliar. I would leave that to the board to advise, as far as process for dedication, or do we do something from the high school and building and athletic level? Again, I've not, last dedication I was part of was Jefferson School.
Yeah, I think
That's
the
been a decade ago.
last,
That might have been the
we
last one.
Dedicated was the baseball field.
Baseball, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a while ago.
We know how to do it. We can.
Well, yeah, we'll figure it out.
So we'll look at,
We'll-
we'll see how the weather goes in the fall, and see if we do it in the fall, or if we do something in the spring. But great to hear those projects are nearing completion. Again, I'd like to thank John and his team, because the buildings look great. I mean, in addition to everything that we've done that is known, water fountains were disabled and water stations are replaced in the building, touchless water stations with pedals. No stone went unturned in preparation for the kids and the adults to return to school in a safe manner. So I want to thank everybody, the maintenance staff, for working hard and doing that. And I'd also like to thank the executive directors that are with us this evening, and those that are not. Regina has been working tirelessly. Jen is working tirelessly as well with our students to make sure that their needs are being met in a curricular or to the needs of their IEPs. In Jen's case, and the supervisors. So thanks to everybody who has done everything that they can. It's been a lot of pressure. I've put on a lot of pressure in making sure things go well. No surprise there. And again, we're just doing the best that we know how to do, and we will continue to monitor to make things even better. With that concludes the superintendent's reports for this evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 8, the Board of Education Committee reports. The first one up will be athletics. Mr. Nicholson?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yes, sir. Well, we got fall sports underway last week, full go. Every sport was playing, and one of the challenges this fall was, the COVID-19 guidelines and making sure the venues are all prepared. We had our first trial run with the football game, and I'll be honest with you, I thought the fans did a great job spacing themselves out like we asked them. We set designated seats out. I thought it went well. Obviously, there were some improvements that need to be made for the next game. As Mr. Shiro told you, we have met this morning, and we are going to get even better for our next game. So I was pretty proud of what went on, especially with the fans. I thought they handled it well. They came there to support the kids, and I thought it turned out really well. As we mentioned last time, we were going to try to get senior nights in as early as possible this year. And one of the reasons is you just don't know, when the season could come to an end. So we did recognize our girls soccer seniors last night, and we are going to be recognizing our boys soccer this Thursday, and we're going to honor our senior football and cheerleaders this Friday at the Mooney game. Girls volleyball is scheduled for September 9th, and I believe Mr. Young is going to do something with the band. I think the date was somewhere around September 11th, that he's going to do some type of a special invite to put on a band show, a band performance for the families only. And at that time, I believe he'll recognize the seniors. So, like I said, our first weekend, as Mr. Shiro said, I got a call Monday night. We can't come. So we went scrambling. We found an opponent. We were able to pick up an extra home game. So, and I'll be like Mr. Shiro said, kudos to Mr. Lacy, Sean Shimko, Tunes, and everybody that really came together and worked really hard to put on a good show last Saturday night.
Thank you very much. I'm just happy.
You're
that-
welcome.
I'm happy to hear that the seniors are getting their recognition, because I was really concerned about that. So thank you very much. Okay, finance advisory, we don't have anything. Okay.
Nothing at this time.
Board policies and guidelines.
Nothing at this time.
Thank
Patty?
you. Yes,
Finance.
yes. You're too late.
Last week, I attended an OSBA meeting
Oh, okay.
on the Community Redevelopment Act and TIFs, something which have not involved in Warren any losses to the Warren City Schools. And they were good meetings. They basically advised the superintendent just to say no and then participate in the discussion. Basically, if the superintendent's not there at the beginning, you don't act like Lordstown and have them come and say, oh, well, we gave the 75% abatement, you'll have to
Right.
live with it. So it was a very, very good session.
Well, thank you for attending. Legislative, I don't have anything. Regina, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, TCTC, Mr. Faulkner.
Nothing really new at TCTC, waiting on things, and it looks like everybody's ready to go, and our enrollment is gonna be very good, as it usually is.
So they
at the
start
season.
after
Yes,
Labor Day?
After Labor Day.
Okay, so then like September 22nd, our next meeting, you
Exactly,
will have a little bit
we'll
better
have a number
idea.
of students and the
Okay.
number of programs that we're in, and so it's,
I'll be interested to
looking
see
good.
how they're doing things out there. Very good. Thank you. Anything under old business? Okay, anything under new business? Okay, we will move along. Let's go to item number 1 on page 3, the treasurer's recommendations. Mr. Faulkner, please.
Treasurer's recommendations, the minutes is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the August 2020 board minutes be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley? Mr. Fowley?
John?
Oh,
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
yes, and the motion carries. Okay, on page 4, item 2, Mr. Fowley, please.
Approve the application, accept the grant, and approve the grant application. It is recommended the resolution listed below to approve the application, accept the grant, and approve the grant appropriation, A, be approved as submitted.
Second?
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 5, item 3, Mrs. Patterson, please.
The 2020-21 co-curricular budget and purpose statements. It is recommended the resolution listed below establishing 2020-2021 co-curricular budget and purpose statements be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 6, item 4, Mr. Walker, please.
Depository agreements. It is recommended the resolution listed below entering into agreements for deposit into public monies, A, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. We'll move under superintendent's recommendations on page 7, item 1, Mr. Faulkner, please.
Yes. Agreements, contracts, and/or leases. It is recommended the resolution listed below entering into agreements, contract, and/or leases through A through C be approved as submitted. They're listed below. Site care, City of Warren, and I think
Should that
those
be A through A and B?
I was wondering, is this
Yeah,
should be A?
I removed item B.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I was
in
wondering, I
draft
saw.
format.
Okay.
so just A and B.
So
then.
A and B is the, okay. All right, thanks for clearing that up.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, any questions on this? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 8, item 2, Mr. Fowley, please.
The Ohio Department of Education certification for the Ohio Teachers Evaluation System and the Ohio Principal Evaluation System. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the Ohio Department of Education certification for credentialed Ohio Teachers Evaluation System and Ohio Principals Evaluation Evaluators be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 9, item 3, Mrs. Patterson, please.
The recognition of bids received for supplying bread and bread products for the school lunch program for the 2020-21 school year. It is recommended the resolution listed below recognizing the bid through Ohio Schools Council for supplying bread and bread products for the school lunch program for the 2020 and 2021 through 2021 school year be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns with this? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 10, item 4, Mr. Walker, please.
Awarding the contract for supplying bread and bread products for the school lunch program for the 2020-2021 school year. It is recommended the resolution listed below awarding the contract for supplying bread and bread products for the school lunch program for the 2020-2021 school year be approved as submitted.
A second.
Thank you. Any questions on this? Please call the roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 11, item 5, Mr. Faulkner, please.
Yes. Recognition of bids received for supplying milk and dairy products for the school lunch program for the 2021 school year. It is recommended the resolution listed below recognizing the bid received for supplying milk and dairy products for the school lunch program for the 2021 school year be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions regarding this resolution? Please call the roll.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 12, item 6, Mr. Fowley, please.
Awarding of bid received for supplying milk and dairy products for the school lunch program for the 2020 through 2021 school year. It is recommended the resolution listed below, awarding the contract for supplying milk and dairy products for the school lunch program for the 2020 through 2021 school year, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Go ahead and please call the roll.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 13, Item 7, Mrs. Patterson, please.
Do I have to read this in its entirety?
No.
Or do I stop at employer? After the second
Yeah,
paragraph?
that's where I would stop, yep.
Okay. Agreement for selection of pipe fitters for district projects and authorizing the superintendent to execute memorandum of understanding. Whereas the Warren City School District Board of Education, the board seeks to engage skilled trade workers for assignment as pipe fitters, and whereas such workers are subject to an agreement between the Mechanical Contractors Association of Mahoney Valley Association and local union number 396, in which the Warren City School District of Education is a member employer.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, concerns with this resolution? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mr. Fowley,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 14, item 8, Mr. Walker, please.
Acceptance of gifts. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding acceptance of gifts be approved as submitted. And we want to thank Michelle Prim for her cloth mask for every student valued at $15,828.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
Second.
Every student.
Very
Amazing.
good.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Call the roll,
Thank you.
please.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mr. Fowley,
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes. And once again, thank you so much for your most generous donation. On page 15, item 9, Mr. Faulkner, please.
Tuition reimbursement is recommended a resolution listed below for tuition reimbursement be approved as submitted. The names are listed again. Congratulations, and we certainly appreciate our staff and teachers continuing to improve.
I second.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead and call the roll, please.
Mr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Fowley,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. And on page 16, item 10, Mr. Fowley, please.
Personnel recommendations. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding personnel items A through N be approved as submitted.
That will take you to page 33. We do have one retirement, a classified retirement on page 25. I want to thank them for their service to our district. And does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this?
The retiree is Barb Nicholas. She's food service at Lincoln.
Thank you. Thank you for your years of service to all of our, all of the children.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'd second.
Thank you. With that, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley,
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. And we don't have anything under the associate superintendent recommendations. Under board recommendations on page 34.
Yes.
Hold on one second here. Mrs. Patterson, if you could please do that one for me.
Under the board's recommendations, the second addendum to the treasurer's employment contract. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding an addendum to the treasurer's employment contract be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? And go ahead and call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Fowley,
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 35, item 2, Mr. Walker, please.
Sorry. Page 35, item 2.
Yep.
Resolution authorizing filing of bankruptcy proof of claim. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding authorizing filing of bankruptcy proof of claim be approved as submitted.
Second.
Do I need to-
Does anyone have any questions regarding this? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. Page 36, item 3, Mr. Faulkner, please.
Yes. Ohio School Boards Association virtual annual business meeting,
It's a new world, Regina.
brand new.
Yeah,
It is
you
recommended.
know, then.
Huh? Between virtual meeting and Zoom, we
I
gonna
know,
be on
right?
just wasted. It is recommended the resolution listed below appointing a delegate to the Ohio School Boards Association's virtual annual business meeting be approved as submitted. Whereas this meeting will be held on October the 29th, 2020. And the delegates are, of course, Ms. Patricia Lamperos, and the alternate is Sister Regina Patterson.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. And then on to page 37, item 4, Mr. Fowley, and if you could please read it in its entirety.
Item 4, a resolution condemning racism and affirming the board's commitment to an inclusive educational environment. Whereas the Warren City School District Board of Education, hereunto referred to as the board, and Warren City School staff are saddened and outraged by recent events highlighting certain injustices throughout our country, and whereas racism, bigotry, and hate have no place in our schools, our community, our nation, and whereas the board has adopted policies promoting equity for all students and families and prohibiting discriminatory, retaliatory, harassing, or hazing behaviors against any member of the Warren Schools community, and whereas the board, administration, and staff remain committed to providing a safe and nurturing learning environment free from racism and supporting the rights of all students and families. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Warren City School District as follows. 1, we, the members of the Board of Education of the Warren City School District, along with its administration and staff, denounce racism and all forms of unlawful discriminatory behavior. 2, the board and district administration reaffirm our commitment to foster an educational, employment, and community framework that values the lives and contributions of every human being. 3, the board will continuously monitor its policies to ensure promotion of equity and fairness across all school and community settings to the greatest extent possible. 4, the board, administration, and staff commit to maintaining an inclusive educational environment where all are treated with respect and dignity, and one that will develop future leaders who will carry the mission of equality, justice, and respect into their various communities and professions. Be it further resolved that all formal actions of this Board of Education concerning or relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this Board of Education in compliance with the law.
Do we have a second?
Period.
Julian Walker, I second.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Does anyone have any comments? I would just, before you begin, I would like to thank Mr. Walker, who really spearheaded this for this board, for this district. I appreciate the time that he took to bring it up, in public session on a number of occasions. Obviously, this is something that, we have always has been, on our mind, but to have this formally on paper and voted on, I think is just so important for the school district and for the community. So, Mr. Walker, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just think that even though we have this, formally now, but as a practice for this school district, being a longtime member here, I think we have really done a great job in most circumstances. Not perfect, but certainly as a school district, I think that we've done extremely well, even working with the community, the churches, the other organizations, and whenever necessary for discussions and meetings, we've been able to do that. So, this is great that it's here, but I think we have, in practice and in theory, been doing this for a long time.
Just keep moving forward.
Just keep moving
Yeah.
forward.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything? Okay, let's call for the vote.
Mr. Fowley,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
An enthusiastic yes.
Mr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
and Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. Okay, I did not receive any public participation via email for this meeting, so at this time, I would ask that we entertain a motion to move into executive session. Under the provisions of Ohio Revised Code 121.22, the Warren City Board of Education recessed to executive session at 7:01 PM to discuss D, consideration of the purchase of property and public purposes or sale of property at competitive bidding, and F, matters required to be kept confidential by state or federal law.
Move for executive session for those items. Faulkner.
Do we have a second?
Second, Patterson. Second, Patterson.
Thank you, and please call the roll.
Mr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Fowley,
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, the motion carries. We'll move into executive session. There will be no further action following executive session, so we thank you for joining us via Zoom this evening. Again, congratulations to our 2 summer graduates. Everyone continue to be safe, wash your hands, wear your masks, and stay healthy.